The name of this episode is Picking Up Where We Left Off. So have you ever had a quilt that you've had on the frame, you were doing an edge to edge, and then you had to take it off the frame and do something else? Maybe an emergency happy birthday quilt or something like that. Well, we've had to do that here in the studio quite a number of times, and those quilts usually get tossed to the side. And in fact, the quilt that we have on the frame right now was part of a series that we were doing for version 2 videos about a year ago, and we got about a third of the way through the quilt, and then we started working on our V3 updates and testing. So we pulled it off the frame and we were doing all kinds of other stuff. Well, now we need to get that quilt done. So I've put it on the frame and I couldn't find the design that I had used, and I had scaled it non-proportionally in version 2. So it's not even a design that, at least the proportions aren't anything that we can just re-download or reinstall onto the QBOT. So we have to go back, find the original design, then scale it to the proper dimensions, and then figure out how we're going to quilt it out. Now, in V3, this is really easy, and it's only 3 steps. The first step is to choose the area that we want to quilt in, which we're going to do right now. And part of that quilting area that we choose, we're going to choose some what I call anchor points in the design. And these are points where the curves come together in a cusp, so it's a nice distinct point in the design. I'm going to choose some anchor points. Then when I pull in the design, I'm going to scale it non-proportionally and align up those anchor points with points on the design. And when I'm all done with that, I'm going to save the design, which we can do in V3, and then I'm just going to quilt it out. So let's get started by choosing our area, pulling in the design, and scaling it. So we go over to our frame, and I've got my QBOT up in pattern quilting and in the pattern quilting menu. So now I'm going to choose a boundary for the design. So I just go in here, and it's really not important because I'm not going to quilt in this area. I'm just choosing the boundary so I can bring in the design and do the manipulation. Okay, so I'm going to choose my points, and I'll just set some points here. I'm going to do 4 points to do the boundary, which we would traditionally use, and then I'm going to choose a bunch of more points within the boundary that are those anchor points. Here's the last of my 4 points. Now let's choose some anchor points. Now you can see on my quilt I've got some points like right here, and then right here, and right there, and a 2 more down at the bottom, one there where the design turns, and one there. And I'm going to do that maybe 3 times for a total of 3 repeats within the design. Doing that will give me enough confidence that I've got my design that I pull in and scale. That'll give me enough confidence that if I hit all those points or come really close, then the scaling's good enough. Okay? So let's choose these interior points. And I put my needle down a little bit so it's close to the fabric, and that helps me get them a little bit more close. I'm not guessing so much. I just follow that needle down into the point that's been quilted before, and I'm choosing my points right now. And on the screen, on the tablet, it looks a little strange that we would be doing this. I mean, it's obviously not a boundary, but it shows you the flexibility of V3, what you can do by choosing points like this. And this quilt, again, has been off the frame for probably close to a year, and now we're starting to get these things finished. So here we go, and 3 more points, and then I'm going to call it good. Set that, and set that. And then I say done. And that boundary looks kind of strange, doesn't it? Well, that's okay. It doesn't matter, because now we're going to pull in that design and we're going to make it fit. So let's see, let me go back to my edge-to-edge and borders, and I think it's GTEEO, let's see, it's a 300 or something like that. Let's see, scroll through here. 34, here we go. I think it's this one right here. Sure enough, it is. Now, you can see that it on the screen here that, boy, that sizing is really off. How are we going to make that work? Well, we go to Modify, and then I'm going to turn off Proportional Scaling, and I'm going to scale it in the Y to get it close. And I'm going to zoom in into that particular area here. I'm going to work on these two, the second two. Let that refresh. And we can see that I've got the couple of points there pretty close, but not quite enough. So I'm going to now scale that in the Y direction and move it down. And I need to scale it a little bit more. And maybe in the Y, what we can do is we can tap on and do a direct input, say maybe 200 and, let's say 202%. And it looks like I'm actually pretty close. I'll tweak it a little bit. Yeah, 202 is probably a little bit too much, so 201.5. Shrinks it down just a little bit. Pretty close. I like that. Let's see how I'm going to move over again. See how I do with all three of them put in there. And you know, I'm looking at it, and it might need to shrink just a bit. It says 107, I'm going to go 106 point, well, let's just say 106 in the X, and that's a little bit too small, 106.5, and I think I'm pretty happy with that. I might be a 1/16 of an inch off at the bottom, but that's okay. That's good. So I'm going to say done. And now I'm going to say save pattern. I'm going to save this pattern, and then the next time I choose my boundary, I'll choose it correctly, like I'm ready to finish up the edge to edge. So I'm going to say save pattern and say like that. And this is, we're going to call this makeup. Make up. Okay. And we're going to say done. Now at this point I can press remove, hit the back arrow, and now I'm going to start the pattern quilting to finish it up. Pattern quilting. And I'm going to choose my boundary points, which really don't make much difference here. It's those alignment points that make the big difference, but just to get the basic scale correctly, we'll go from a full edge to edge the way we would normally do it. Just to get a basic size. When we bring this in, we're bringing it in at 100%. And then I need to define some of these points here as reference points for the next row. So there's a point, and I'm going to come in and then go back up. And that way these points don't all look like they're in a line. It'll now be, I need to look at those, the peaks of these little zigzags I'm putting in. Okay, I say done. And I look at the peaks of those zigzags. Now I want to go to all my designs and search for makeup. There it is. And I modify it and I make sure that it comes in at 100%. I'm just going to type in 100% to make sure that it's hasn't been rounded in any way. And I'm going to move this up and show you those were the points. If you look at the tip there, the tips of those peaks where they go up and then where they meet in with the bottom of the curves, that's what I'm looking at on the screen. So that's the way it is on the quilt, and I have to offset this so that those peaks go just off to the side. And I'm trying to think, maybe, yeah, this will be just fine. In fact, I think this one, see, I have to remember all this stuff a year later, and this will happen to you too. If you go out in the middle of, stop in the middle of a project and then have to come back to it, you have to remember, oh, does this design, does it have an offset or doesn't it? Or how does it line up? And looking at the design now, it looks like the offset is actually already built into it. So just shifting it down, just doing a vertical translation in the Y direction only, actually at the top of the pattern will align properly with the bottom of the previous one. So everything looks good. I'm just going to line things up there and then double tap my X so I can't move it in the X direction, and then come down and get that nested right there, and I'll move it down just a little bit. Just looking at the other ones, there was some clearance, and I think that's good. I'm going to say done, and then move to start. And that's good. It's off the edge of the quilt, which is good. I like that. And I'm going to pull up my bobbin thread. And then press go. All right, so we're going to let that quilt out, and it looks like it's doing fine. I'm looking at it, and it seems to be meshed the way it was in the way it was done previously. So I've matched it up properly, and I'll get this quilt off the frame. We'll get it done today, which is a nice thing to do when we get these projects completed. So until next time, enjoy this technique, and remember that if something seems like it's disastrously happened and there's no way out, just a little bit of thinking, creative thinking with V3 and choosing your points, you can get that scale back and get back in business in no time.